Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Idahoan Show. As you can probably tell by looking at my channel page, I've been running a YouTube channel for a number of years now, and I thought I would take a minute to share with you some of what I've learned about digital camcorders and some of the models that are available on the market. Now, I use primarily general-purpose, entry-level digital camcorders. I've worked a little bit with action cameras and have found that while they certainly have their uses, they're just not as versatile as a general-purpose camcorder. And I've never really felt the need or had the justification to go out and buy, any kind of a high-end camcorder. So at the moment I have three primary cameras that I use, and they're all the entry-level general-purpose camcorder models from Sony, Canon, and Panasonic, respectively. So I thought I'd do sort of a comparative review of these three cameras and give you my perspective on their pros and cons, because they all have their pros and cons. Now, before I talk about camera specifics, let me say just a few words about video file formats. Video can be recorded in a variety of different resolutions, and then those video files can be saved in a variety of different file types. You got your standard file types like, .mov, .mp4, .avi, that most any computer will recognize and most any video editing program will allow you to import and edit. Then you've got proprietary file types like AVCHD that requires a special interpreter program to retrieve the video off of the camera and format it in a way that your computer or your video editing software can understand. Some video editors may have built-in interpreters. It all just kind of depends. As far as resolution is concerned, I've found that for what I do, 720p provides about the optimal compromise between providing good image quality and still keeping file size and the computational resources necessary to edit the video effectively manageable. 720p is your classical high-definition video. In contrast to 480p, which was your old standard definition, or the 1080 formats, which are your full HD, or the 4K and up, which is your Ultra HD. Now, like I said, I presently have three digital camcorders that I use. Just the entry-level models from Sony, Panasonic, and Canon. Let's actually start off by talking about the Sony camera, because that's the one I'm running right now, for reasons that will become apparent presently. The Sony camera has probably the best dynamic range of the three cameras that I have. And what that means is that it's usable in the widest variety of lighting conditions. It shoots remarkably good indoor video. Any room that's reasonably well lit, it seems like I can get a decent picture. Like right now, I've got like a 60-watt light bulb on the ceiling, and I've got a little window kind of behind the camera that's letting in a little bit of daylight, and you can see me. So, the indoor picture quality is pretty good, even in relatively low light conditions. And yet, if I take the camera outside on a bright sunny day, even a bright sunny snowy day, it does just fine in that environment as well. The other thing I really like about the Sony is that it probably has the best sound quality of my three digital video cameras. Now, what I don't like so much about the Sony is the video format that it records to. It only records to 1080i formats, which are interlaced video file formats. So if anything starts moving quickly, you'll start to see either lines on the screen or it'll get really blurry. And either way, because of the interlacing, any time that you start taking video of things that are moving quickly, you know, action shots of any kind, the video quality degrades substantially. And then the other thing is it only records to the AVCHD format, so I have to use the extra interpreter program to get the video off the camera before I can do anything with it. Not a big deal, just a little bit of extra hassle. Now, by contrast, my Panasonic camcorder supports a variety of video resolutions and file formats, so I can set it to record directly to 720p and save the files as, I forget if it's a .mov or a .mp4, but, you know, a readily recognizable video file format that I can just drag to the desktop and import into any video editor that I should choose to use. Of course, it records full-frame video, at least in 720p mode, so I don't have the interlacing issues like I do with the Sony. You know, I can use the Panasonic to capture, you know, action shots or, you know, film fast-moving objects without having to worry about degradation of the video quality. You know, the dynamic range is almost as good as the Sony. You know, indoors, outdoors, the Panasonic captures pretty good quality video in a wide range of lighting conditions. So it's a good camera, and it excels in some of the ways that the Sony falls short, but it too does have its shortcomings. One of its shortcomings is the sound quality. You know, the sound quality with the Panasonic just sounds kind of mushy. It's not as crisp as with my other camcorders. It's also the most sensitive to shock of any of my camcorders. You know, I've often had it where I had the camera on a tripod and I bumped the tripod or one of the legs of the tripod, and that was enough to jar the battery pack momentarily out of contact with the terminals, causing the camera to lose power and shut itself off. And usually it was able to recover most of the video if it was recording at the time power was interrupted, but that has been an issue that's come up from time to time as I've been filming with it. It also seems to take longer to boot up than my other cameras. I'm not sure if it's really so much the length of time it takes as just that, you know, it turns on and you can see video on the screen and it looks like it's booted up, but there's actually a slight delay before it's ready to receive inputs and start recording. So there have been a few times when I turned on the camera to go record something and I thought it was booted up, so I hit the record button and assumed it would start recording, and then later realized that I'd pressed the record button before it was fully booted up, and so it hadn't recognized the command and hadn't actually started recording, and so I didn't record that video footage. So those have been at least a couple of minor annoyances with the Panasonic camera. Now, my Canon camcorder doesn't support quite as many video formats as the Panasonic, but I can still capture full frames at 1080 resolution and save them as a commonly recognizable video format, which is pretty easy to scale down to 720p. So it's almost as good as the Canon in terms of the video file formats. You know, once again, it shoots full frame video, so I don't have to worry about interlacing like I do with the Sony. The sound quality on the Canon is almost as good as the Sony. It's certainly much better than the Panasonic. However, the dynamic range is not so good. I really only can get good video quality with the Canon using it outdoors in good lighting conditions. So that's kind of a limiting factor. Which is kind of unfortunate because the Canon has a couple of useful features that my other cameras don't. Specifically, you can use it to record slow motion video or time-lapse video. Now, the slow motion video is only by a factor of 2, so, you know, it's not like, you know, dedicated high-speed video or anything like that, but it can still be useful. You know, and similarly with the time-lapse there, you do have a wide range of settings to record anything from just slightly fast video up to, you know, days or weeks of footage. Now, with both of those settings, whether you're recording slow motion or time-lapse, you do lose the soundtrack. It doesn't record audio for any of those, but it can still be a useful feature. So, at the end of the day, if I'm filming an audio-intensive indoor scene, you know, a talking video like this, then I typically grab the Sony camera. If I'm going to be filming, you know, project work in my workshop or other action scenes, you know, in the shop or outdoors, usually I grab my Panasonic camera. And then the Canon is a good backup, and I use it for certain, you know, special purpose filming. But I think without further ado, let me give you some comparative video. You know, I want to show you some scenes that I filmed with all three cameras, both of an outdoor action scene and of an audio-intensive indoor scene, and from there on, I guess you can decide for yourself which you like the best. In any case, thank you for watching the Idahoan Show.
Praise my soul, the King of heaven, to his feet thy tribute bring. Ransomed, healed, restored, forgiven, praise my soul, the King of heaven, to his feet thy tribute bring. Ransomed, healed, restored, forgiven, his praises sing. Alleluia, alleluia, praise the everlasting King. Praise my soul, the King of heaven, to his feet thy tribute bring. heaven.